know, you know, because he got to move and I got to move. But thank you.
I thought the man of the hour was Jalen Brunson, but that's okay. Thank you all for being here. It's a special morning. Let me start by thanking Reverend Johnny Green, my good friend, who's stuck in an airport in South Carolina. He's in the tarmac. He's in the plane and he's late. But he texted us, he said he couldn't be here on time, and he opened up Mount Nebo for us to be here this morning. So I want to thank him. And of course, Senator Clear and Assemblyman Al Taylor. Yeah. And of course, Keith Lilly, who and William Allen, who's a district leader, just walked in, my brother. Thank you all for being here. Let me just say to you that in government, I'll start with this. In government, you have budgets. Budgets are a statement of values, right? Where you put your money in government states what your values are. For example, every year I consistently vote against the military budget because I think it's bloated and more money should go to domestic issues, right? Programs and education and housing. And lots more money goes to the military budget. So budgets are quantifiable. You could measure them. But the work that the church does in our community cannot be measured in its full scope. Because when you take a young person out of a corner, as many of you do, the impact that has cannot be quantified, cannot be measured in its full scope. When you keep a family together and you strengthen that family, you're also strengthening the community, because families that are together make a strong community. Families that are split, divided, or fractured make a weak community and a weak nation. So when you keep a family together, you cannot quantify the goodness that comes out of that, for not just for that family, but for the community as well. So the work that you do, I believe strongly, is the spinal cord of our community. Because you do stuff that cannot be measured in its full scope and impact. So I wanted to thank you for that, because it's necessary work. It's work that not only complements what government does, I think it goes far beyond that, and it keeps the community moving forward. So I wanted to thank you for that. Many of you may not know that my activism in public service and in politics doesn't come from like a Dominican political party. No. It comes from a Baptist church. Because as a young child, as a young teenager, a group of us, new immigrants, we couldn't even speak the language yet. We were recruited by a Baptist preacher by the name of Reverend Dudley Rucker, who pastored the White Rock Baptist Church. Now, he was a militant reverend, and as we learned through him about the civil rights movement, and we learned through him about voting rights, and he was a big supporter of Adam Clayton Powell Jr. And he taught us, he says, I want to teach you guys the Judeo-Christian tradition. And in our broken English, we said, what is that? And he said very clearly, if they slap you on the cheek, you turn the other cheek. And if they slap you on the other, you give them the 13. And we stood in amazement. We didn't know. We thought maybe he was referring to a passage in the Bible. And we said, Reverend, what is the 13? He goes, that's the size of my foot. So that's the tradition that I come from, right? And that's how I actually got involved in local activism. He fought to decentralize the school system. The school districts that you hear about now were created when the Board of Education was decentralized into school districts so communities could have greater input in the education of their children. And he was one of the leaders, and he would take us to these meetings. And that's how I got interested and involved in public service and activism. So my roots and what I do today, I believe very strongly, are in that White Rock Baptist Church. So I thank you for being here today. As been said, these are difficult times that we're facing. We have war, we have disinvestment, we have a shifting of the budget to areas that are not productive for our communities and your congregation. You have, for example, an enormous amount of money being shifted by this administration to the Department of Homeland Security. $170 billion. 75 billion of which went straight into ICE. And as I speak right now, they're looking to pump in another 70 billion if they can to fund it for the next 10 years. That money comes from somewhere. And it's shifted, as I said earlier, because the budget is a document of values from Medicaid. 488,000 of the constituents that I represent are Medicaid recipients. The cuts haven't kicked in yet. They will at the end of this year and next year. It comes from SNAP, food stamps. It comes from different important programs for our families. So that money is shifted and is going into the mass deportation machine that's being built. And so we're trying to claw that money back. We're trying to push it back to where it needs to be with people, families, children. And this is an enormous job. But we've begun little by little to push back on it. We were able to get into the detention centers because they were denying us access to see the people that are being held there. We went to court and we won, and now we go to the detention centers. The IRS was going to report everybody that did their taxes through an ITIN number. Those are usually folks that don't have papers and they want to pay their taxes. They were going to report them to us. We stopped them. The airlines were selling passenger information to ICE and federal law enforcement. We were able to stop that too. So these are some of the victories that we're getting. To push back, but at the end of the day, the money has to be clawed back because it's just an enormous amount of money. Just so you can have an idea, the city's budget last year was, I think, $55 billion. They gave $75 billion just to ICE and 170 in total to the Department of Homeland Security. And so this is the challenges that we're facing. We got to come together as a community so that we can get our fair share. And the state and the senator and the assemblymen are here, are doing everything they can. You know, they're holding it down. They're trying to do the best that they can, but they cannot build housing without the federal government's involvement. Housing is a deep pocket endeavor. You cannot build housing without having the federal government and the tax credits that are offered through the federal government for development there for the state and the city. It must be a partnership. And so to do that, we have to all come together. And I remember how David Dinkins was able to put together a historic coalition. a black, brown, labor, progressive coalition that brought the city together. It was so impressive that they had to push him out. They had to push him out. And so that's why we have to begin to build that coalition of conscience. Is a coalition of conscience that will push us forward and will make us establish the right agenda and accomplish what we need to accomplish for the people that we represent and your congregations. So I'm glad you're here today to begin to speak about some of these things and to understand that the only way we can do that is if we come together and we respect each other. And we don't have to agree on everything. Nobody ever does. It's almost impossible to agree on everything. In fact, if I see people agreeing on everything, I'm suspect. I'm suspect because you know, anytime there's 4 people that look like us in a room, there are 7 opinions. And so, but we must have the will to come together and forge an agenda that benefits everybody, as many people as possible under the same tent. A big tent approach to government. So this is critical, now more than ever. I think we're in the right direction. I think we, in the House of Representatives, we gain the majority next year, and we'll have Hakeem Jeffries as our speaker.
Yeah.
Now, some people may say, well, so what? He's from New York.
That's right.
He will be the first African-American speaker ever. He's from Brooklyn. Yeah, okay, we'll forgive him on that. But he's from New York. And he understands our neighborhoods. And he understands the plight of the people that we love and live next to. So yes, that's huge. That's enormous. So we will fight to get the majority and elect him speaker. And now we're even talking about the Senate. We're talking about the Senate. So we gotta have a balance. The White House is in disarray, and the legislature, Congress, must provide that balance. So I ask you for that help to get us there. This is grinding work. This is not easy work.
That's right.
You know, it's sweaty. It's uncomfortable.
Yes.
You know, because being an agent of change is never comfortable. Right. It's uncomfortable.
Come on.
And so I ask you to get in that position where you feel uncomfortable. Yeah, right. Yesterday I was in the middle of the sun, you know, sweating. I said, man, what am I doing? I said, yes. And then I said, you know, I feel uncomfortable. This is exactly how I should be feeling right now. Let me embrace this, right? Let me make it part of my soul. Let me make it part of my being. Let me move forward. And so I ask you for that help. Now, Harlem has a lot of issues. Washington Heights, Inwood has a lot of issues. The Boogie Down Bronx has a lot of issues. You know, but it is a wonderful community. It is a historic community. It has the capital of the African diaspora right here in Harlem. International. Not even national, international. It has an immigrant town up in Washington Heights. It has working class people from all over the world. The Senegalese right there on 116th Street. You have the Puerto Ricans and Mexicans in East Harlem. You know, you have the black community in Harlem, the Dominicans in Washington Heights. You got a Vietnamese community right there on Fordham Road. You got the Albanians up there in the Northwest Bronx. You got West Africans in the West Bronx. You got Soviet Jews and German Jews in Inwood, Irish. It's a big community. Very diverse. And the strength of the district is that diversity. But we must respect each other. Right? We got to respect each other and we got to work together. And we have to make sure that the changes that are critical in Washington occur this coming year. And that begins at home. We cannot have divisions at home. We cannot have that fester for years and decades. It will bring us down. I know there's a lot of local issues. I visit some of your churches. I know New York City and the MTA is ticketing many of your congregation. You know, you got to pay to pray now. I went to Camden Avenue Baptist Church and I talked about paying. The governor was there. I said, we got to stop this. You can't pay to pray.
That's right.
And believe me, $250.
Yeah.
So of course people may not go to church if they're going to get ticketed. Of course people may not go to church if they feel ICE is going to be lurking around to arrest them and deport them. I have the sensitive locations bill that says ICE should not mess around with churches, schools, and hospitals, right? So what I propose today is that we ask for a moratorium on the ticketing by buses on Sunday. The meters are suspended on Sunday.
Yeah.
Why can't we have a moratorium on Sunday? Just ease it down a little bit. Just ease it down. Now, we worked with the police department and we try to get a street and everything. And, you know, that's a step in the right direction, but that's not the answer.
That's right.
The answer is to say, no, man, they have the technology to do those. And by the way, it's not just the churches. The funeral
That's
homes
right.
have been bringing the phone up the hook.
That's right.
Because when you go say goodbye to your loved one, and you know, you're distressed. You're not focused. You just lost somebody. And by the way, Pastor Carl Washington couldn't be here today because he lost a family member. And we all stand with him. And so, but when you go to a funeral home,
Yeah.
you can't leave your card outside the funeral home. You'll get a $250 ticket.
Come on.
And so, you know, we'll start with the churches, the houses of worship. I will write to the MTA and ask them, but I'm going to need your help, all of you, to come together to say that we cannot sustain the system of pay to pray.
That's right.
We cannot sustain that. It hurts. I know some of you have churches on side streets where that is not a factor. But those of you that have churches on avenues and streets where you have bus routes, you're getting clobbered.
Yes.
And people are just not even paying attention to the service. They just worry about getting a $250 ticket. And so I ask you to work with me. I'll send a letter. I'll circulate it to you so you know and you follow the process. But I will be asking the MTA to suspend that. And they have the technology to say, you know, on 145th Street, we're just going to turn them off on Sunday. On Amsterdam Avenue, we'll just turn them off on Sunday. They have the ability to do that.
That's right. Amen.
They have the ability to do that. So I ask you to work with me on that. But with that, I wanted to take this opportunity also to hear from you.